2019 draft. We all remember it for the year the Cardinals gave up on Josh Rosen, the Raiders having 3 first-round picks, and, well, the best receivers in this class not getting drafted in the first round. Well, at least the majority of them. What's crack-lacking? It's your boy Broshmo. Just in case you did not know so, and this is a 2019 redraft. We're going to go back and try to do it better. Obviously, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I always look forward to hearing what you have to say, because I'm sure you're not going to agree with some of these picks, but I think they were pretty good. If you want to check out what I thought about the draft classes, I did that video yesterday. We're going to be doing deep dives for the bulk majority of the rest of the week, so be here for those as well. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into this. We're going with the pre-draft draft order, so none of these are trades that were done during the draft. This is what it was going into it. Just makes things a little simpler. So we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals, and you can't really fault them for moving on from Josh Rosen, considering where his career took him. He was a backup in Miami to eventual practice squad guy with, I think, the Buccaneers. But yeah, Kyler Murray, honestly, I think Kyler Murray was a great pick here. It's just, I think he would succeed in someone else's offense. I think Cliff Kingsbury is still figuring out how to adapt his offense to the NFL, and it looked better, at least at the beginning of the year last year, and then it really, like, teams just, like, defenses just kind of figured it out, and, like, the Cardinals offense wasn't nearly as efficient during the second half of the season. I think it might be better this year. I really hope that they incorporate just a bit more of the vertical game. They tried at parts last year, just didn't work out. But I really like to see that because Kyler Murray's got a cannon of an arm. So I think they stick with him here. I mean, shoot. The San Francisco 49ers, they did it perfectly, I think, last season. Or in this season, who they drafted. Why change, dude? Nick Bosa, he was a monster his rookie season. If not for injury, I think we would have saw that continue growth into elite Pro Bowler. I'm a big fan of Nick Bosa. I don't think you changed the pick here. Now, this is where things kind of get interesting with the New York Jets. Their original pick here, let's actually, 2019 NFL draft was Quinnen Williams, which by no means is a bad pick. It was really the rest of their draft class that wasn't that great. But I think we could do a little bit better. While Quinnen Williams is kind of developing to a pretty solid player, I think there's a lot better players here in this draft class. So I'm going to go with a receiver. We're going to get Sam Darnold some help, and maybe he's able to overcome Adam Gase with an elite wide receiver. We have 3 elite ones here. DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and Terry McLaurin are all top 10 wide receivers. I think Deebo Samuel, you could make an argument he's in the top 20 to 25. Like, he's been very good in his own right, but he's just not quite in the class of Brown, Metcalf, and McLaurin. So really, pick whoever you... I'm cool with any of those wide receivers here. I'm going to go with the one that I like the most, personally. I think he's great after the catch. I think the dude's just, even if you get your hands on him, good luck. I'm going with A.J. Brown, man. Receiver, like, dude, it's just crazy. There's not too many draft classes that produce 3 top 10 wide receivers. This happens to be one of them. If you need help at receiver, if your quarterback needs weapons, this was the class to do it. On to the Las Vegas Raiders. This is our first of 3 picks for them. And they ended up going with Clelin Ferrell. Everyone kind of associates him with being a bust. I think he's kind of becoming a quality player, but by no means is he worth the 4th overall pick. I'm going to stick here with pass rush, though. I'm going to go with my top pass rusher in this class being Brian Burns. I think Brian Burns has really emerged. Like, he's stupid athletic. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler from here on out. We saw last season. We just saw how disruptive he can be. Montez Sweat, he's starting to get there as well. He had a big step up in development, but also he's playing opposite of Chase Young. Josh Allen suffered from a lot of double teams, and when you're one of the bottom, like when your team just doesn't blitz and you have to deal with that almost every snap, and he's also dealt with injuries, like I think Josh Allen still is a top 10 player in this class, and I think we'll see him kind of like pick it back up this season. But Brian Burns is the pick here. Now we're gonna stick with edge. Devin White, man, he's emerged, but and he's actually one of the better like he actually makes significant plays. Like in coverage, we saw it in the Super Bowl. He's disruptive, but we kind of saw that during the last half of the season. This season, let's see if that play becomes more consistent. Because like we waited for a season and a half for all that athleticism to kind of emerge. So I'm not really on board with him being a top 10 pick just yet, considering all the talent in this class. So we're going to go with pass rush. And I'm going to go with Josh Allen here. Dude, opposite side of Shaquille Barrett. They got JPP there. They ended up extending him, but you won't have to if you got Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen really is the bee's knees, man. He could be a stand-up rusher. He could do a lot of different things for you. Now, the infamous Daniel Jones pick. We're not going to go with Daniel Jones. We're not going to take a shot at quarterback. You're just going to have to suffer with Eli for one season. Shoot, maybe Daniel Jones is there with our next pick, because what they pick 17, maybe we could go Daniel Jones, and I feel better about that. Take a shot there. We're in the top 10. Let's get almost a surefire theme right now. And we're going to do that. Because I'm going to go with DK Metcalf. Yes, he is not a good complement to Eli Manning. He is not. Eli Manning at this time, his arm is a rubber band at this point. It's about a snap, an old rubber band. But DK Metcalf, he is so hard to like game plan around. Yeah, it's not like he's the best route runner, but what he does, no one can do at his level with his type of just physicality and athleticism. He's a freak athlete, man. It is what it is. We're gonna go with DK Metcalf, hoping that we could get maybe a better quarterback. Maybe get in Daniel Jones later on in the draft. That would be clutch. Because DK Metcalf, like Jones, he's begging to throw the ball deep, dude. He's begging to throw the ball deep. Jason Garrett, unfortunately, has other plans, but getting a guy with like Metcalf, I think would help Jones's development a ton. Next, on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They initially went with Josh Allen here, which I think is fine. That's good. But I mean, the defense was going to be in shambles anyway. We could go with Montez Sweat here instead. I'm going to try to pair up DJ Chark with Terry McLaurin, and then bam, Nick Foles. You got every opportunity. And shoot, maybe we'll draft Gardner Minshew a little bit later. Not in the first round, obviously. I don't think Minshew's a first-round quarterback. But maybe draft him maybe in like day 2. And get yourself, and he'll be working with just a beautiful supporting cast. The Detroit Lions, this is where they went with T.J. Hawkinson. Hawkinson's starting to emerge as one of the better tight ends in the league, but still not worth the top 10 pick. We're going to go with pass rush because that's kind of been the Achilles heel of this Detroit team. And I'm going to go with Montez Sweat here. Just the type of player he's emerged into, I think, warrants him to be a top 10 pick. He kind of fell because of the heart issues was a big thing, and he was kind of a one-note pass rusher in terms of his moves, and I think he's developed into a much better pass rusher. So we're going to go with that there, pairing him up with Trey Flowers and then having Romeo Okwara kind of like in the rotation there. I think it's deadly. You could always kick Trey Flowers to the interior, even have him stand up behind one of those guys. I think that's pretty solid. And then the Buffalo Bills, they went with Ed Oliver. And while I think Ed Oliver is worth the first rounder, he's a bit slower in how he's developed compared to some of the other interior players in this class. I'm going to go. Oh, man, this one was tough because for me, it was a toss-up between Quinnen Williams and Jeffrey Simmons. I think Simmons is, oh, man, a bit further in his development. Like, really watch out. This guy's going to wreak some havoc in the NFL next season. But I think Quinnen Williams still has the higher ceiling, and we saw him take a significant step up this season, and I think we'll continue to see that. Really a coin toss. It's either or, but I'm going to go with Quinnen Williams in this case. And then the Denver Broncos. They actually have ended up trading this pick back and taking Noah Fant. I'm not going to take a tight end here. You could take a linebacker. It's tempting. I think I'm going to go with the offensive line because we all know Jawan Taylor doesn't really play a down for this team at all. So I'm going to go with Jonah Williams because really when you look back at this offensive tackle class, it's not that great. Like Jawan Taylor might be the next best tackle in this class. I won't consider him a first rounder. Andre Dillard, he hasn't been healthy, and even when he's been on the field, it hasn't been great. Titus Howard's been just a roller coaster ride. So we're gonna go with Jonah Williams, the guy that's kind of a sure thing to kind of fortify that tackle spot next to Bortles, and Bowles. You just have a dominant probably one of the best tackle duos in the league, among the best. Can't forget that there's Ramczyk and Armstead out there. And then the Buffalo Bills sucked. I would have gone with Jonah Williams, but I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay with the offensive line because the interior class is actually quite good here. You got Chris Lindstrom, Eric McCoy, and Elgton Jenkins, who are all phenomenal. All, I think, worth first rounders. I'm going to go with Jenkins just because there's a bit more versatility and where he can play. He literally could play almost everywhere on the offensive line. So we're going to get protection for our eventual future quarterback that they're going to draft next season. And then the Green Bay Packers. So they got Rashawn Gary, who's actually starting to develop into a scary player in his own right. I don't think necessarily on the caliber of some of the other top edge rushers in this class, but he's pretty quality. So I think they did good with that pick. But I'm gonna pair freaking Alexander up with one of the best cornerback twos in the league right now. He in this corner class actually is not that great. Like I'm gonna go first. Let's talk about him. I'm gonna go with Jameel Dean. Dude's phenomenal. He could probably be a number one corner if the team needed him to be. But pairing up with Alexander, that's scary. Dean came in like the second half of his rookie season, and he showed great flashes, and it just proceeded. He proceeded to do that the following season. There's a reason the Bucs secondary was very good last year. And I mean, honestly, like looking at the rest of the class, you probably don't got a first rounder here. Like Byron Murphy ends up being just a slot guy and an okay one at that. Greedy Williams, injuries. Obviously, Baker had the stupidity off the field. Rocky Sin lost his starting job last season. Ariawari, he's shown flashes a bit. Julian Love was okay in the slot in the box. Lane didn't really get to play. Mullins has struggled. Williams hasn't really played. David Long struggled. Lonnie Johnson ended up moving to safety because he struggled playing corner. Sean Murphy-Burton's probably the best slot in this class. Like, there's just not a lot of good players. Rashad Fenton might be the second best corner in this class. And he's like maybe I'd consider him fringe first rounder. But we're gonna go with Dean here. And then the Miami Dolphins, I'll pull the trigger here on Devin White, man. Like athletically, yeah, the guy's a freak. But I mean, we saw it this year with, I would say Micah Parsons is a better prospect than Devin White was. And he got picked at 12? So 13 is not bad. It's just linebackers. There's like very few linebackers that actually tip the scales for defenses. Mostly you just don't want a liability at linebacker. But I mean, Devin White, I think he, at least what he has turned into, he could be one of those linebackers that really does matter on defense. Not saying linebackers don't matter on defense, but it's less important than obviously corner and edge rush. or not the Eagles, the Falcons. This is where they ended up kind of double dipping on the offensive line. Obviously, one's kind of worked out, the other not so much. So we're gonna go with the interior. I want to get Grady Jarrett a stupid good running buddy in stinking Jeffrey Simmons. Can you imagine that duo on the interior? That's terrifying. And then hopefully when our next pick comes around, we could take one of those guards, because as we kind of already talked, there's not really another tackle in this class worth taking in the first round. But yeah, phenomenal. All right, Washington, hear me out on this one. They didn't trade back. They ended up getting Dwayne Haskins, and it didn't work out. But we haven't had to trade back in this class, right? Washington, you haven't had to trade up. Like, that's like Haskins, you took a shot on one of the top quarterbacks in the class and it didn't work out. Cool, that's fine. I think it was worth the shot. I still say we take that shot with a guy that has displayed a bit more talent and upside. Daniel Jones, see if you could develop him. I know the offense not necessarily that great right now, especially since we're not going to have Terry McLaurin. But still, I think it's worth the shot here. You didn't have to trade up. That was kind of the main thing. Not having to sacrifice draft picks to still get probably who you deem maybe a franchise guy, or at least taking a shot at a potential franchise guy, is kind of clutch. That's why I thought the Patriots did a wonderful job with Mac Jones. Didn't even have to trade up for him. Good on you, Patriots. Will it work out? Who knows? But you didn't have to sacrifice draft capital for it. This one was kind of tough. Could be a bit iffy. With the Panthers, their interior guys are all starting to kind of fade away. Like Kwame Short's starting to get banged up. Vernon Butler's kind of bad. So I'm gonna get a guy that can be a difference maker in Ed Oliver. He really developed into a pretty darn good pass rusher interior player. I know he's not so great against the run, but I think maybe because I think at this time the Panthers were still playing. They're 3-4. I could be wrong about that. No, they still were playing at 3-4. Okay, yeah. Because Brian Burns ended up playing kind of that stand up. I think that's actually puts Ed Oliver in a great position, playing more of a 5-tech role. So I still think the talent is there, and maybe in Carolina it gets better developed. Not to say Buffalo does a bad job with developing an interior talent. It hasn't worked out there. Like Buffalo, they do a great job normally at developing their interior or their defensive line players. All right, so it didn't work out. Giants fans, we didn't get Daniel Jones. You're stuck with Eli or someone else you end up bringing in. Maybe we get Gardner Minshew. I keep bringing up Uncle Rico. Man, I'd just love to see Uncle Rico get a second shot in the NFL. I'm just going to say that. But let's improve the interior. That's kind of been a spot. The offensive line's obviously been a big weakness. It'd be nice to address tackle. Like I said, there's no real tackle prospects worth it here. But I think between Chris Lindstrom and Eric McCoy, both these guys are totally worth a pick here. So I'm gonna go with Eric McCoy. I think he's been slightly better than Lindstrom. Not nearly as banged up, but really Lindstrom was only banged up his rookie season. Vikings. We're gonna stick with interior. Lindstrom's here. We're taking him. Better player than Garrett Bradbury. I think move Pat Elflein back to center. That's where he was he played his best during his rookie season. So maybe moving him back and maybe you could still get something out of him. Regardless, Chris Lindstrom's a phenomenal pick and he'll be there for the long haul on that defensive interior. Tennessee Titans, we end up not being able to grab Jeffrey Simmons or AJ Brown. Kind of sucks. I still want to go receiver here. I think that would still be pretty good. And we're going to go with Deebo Samuel because he's an after the catch machine. Probably better than Brown in that regard, but I think Brown has a bit more versatility in what he can do in terms of his route running and being a deep threat, while Samuel, again, he kind of fits a role there in San Fran. I think he could do other things. It's just he's not really asked to do that. And Samuel, he has kind of battled injury throughout his career. But we're gonna go with that with the Titans. And with the Steelers, like Devin Bush has not been a bad pick. They like traded up for him. It's just we haven't really like he's been maybe average to maybe slightly above average at best, and he's been beat up. It's kind of stunted his development. But I'm gonna stick with the wide receiver position, and just knowing that he won't be here later, and honestly he might be the best receiver on the Steelers right now. Where are you at? Did I pass? Oh, yeah, I must have passed him. We're going to go with Deontay Johnson. If he could show a bit more consistency, drops kind of were an issue this year, then dude is fine. I know a lot of people would be like, well, Chase Claypool, look at him. Let's wait one more season. Like Deontay Johnson, he's shown like high-end ability the last 2 seasons. Again, drops, work those out. Steelers, they're really good at developing receivers. But let's grab Johnson now because he won't be there later. If I would have grabbed him with one of the other first-round picks. Like, the dude's a first-round pick, in my opinion. The Seattle Seahawks, this was near the end of the Legion of Boom. So, probably actually the death nail is already in that with the Legion of Boom. So, let's start addressing the secondary. Like I said, the corner class isn't all that impressive, but the safety class has some names that are really solid. And I'm going to go with Darnell Savage, who has been really good starting opposite of Adrian Amos. So, Savage was my top safety in this class at the time, too. I just love what Savage brings to Green Bay. So, we're going to try to mimic that in Seattle. And then the Baltimore Ravens. My brain fart. With all these bird teams, man, I get mixed up. I almost said Philadelphia Eagles. But the Ravens, we're actually going to jump the gun on a linebacker a year early. And while Patrick Queen, yeah, he shined at spots. I mean, yeah. Let's get a guy that we know that is developing pretty well. And you may be thinking Devin Bush. Well, yeah, I think Devin Bush is probably still worth the first rounder. I think we've seen a bit more out of, where he at? Dre Greenlaw. I mean, he literally came in and essentially was the reason Noshawn Alexander lost his starting spot. He was a big free agent signing, and he ended up getting traded, actually. Yeah, he got traded to the Saints soon after. Like, Greenlaw's been pretty darn good, so we're going to go with Greenlaw. And then the Houston Texans, I would love to go quarterback, but we're not going with Dwayne Haskins. Did I say quarterback? I'm thinking of the Texans now. But let's just comment on how bad this quarterback class is. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Gardner Minshew is probably the next best quarterback in this class. And I know there's probably some true lock truthers out there. But no, the defense is starting to decline at this point with the Texans. I mean, the offense, they really tried to improve the offensive line in this class, and I just don't think there's any prospects there worth taking. You can maybe make a case for Jawan Taylor or Andre Dillard, maybe even I don't think so. Like Nate Davis would also be an interesting name to bring on the interior, but I want to get a difference maker, so we're gonna go to the defense. I'm going to go with Rashawn Gary. Oh, you're on D-line, aren't you? Yeah, Rashawn Gary. I think he's starting to look like a pretty darn good prospect. I mean, the upside was there with him. It was just production at Michigan was kind of a thing. Like, he was one of those high sack total, lot of pressure guys. Not a lot of pressure guys. He didn't get a lot of pressure. He's really starting to actually develop into a disruptor. So knowing that J.J. Watt, he's not long for the future there, and plus he's a guy that you kick on the interior anyway. Let's try to make the pass rush good. I mean, Clowney, he leaves, so let's do it. This is the Raiders. This is their second pick, and I think when I did my mock at the time, like Devin White was kind of a guy I flirted with at that pick. So because linebackers always has been trash in Oakland for a while. Let's change that with them going to Las Vegas soon. We're gonna grab Devin Bush, man. We're gonna grab Bush. The Eagles. They ended up going. Who did they go with in this class? Oh, this was the Dillard pick, wasn't it? Or they ended probably. I think they traded up. Yeah, they traded up to 22 and got Andre Dillard. Because they were looking for the heir apparent to Jason Peters. Lo and behold, Jordan Mailata might be that guy. So we're gonna actually go with receiver. Because they ended up taking Jalen Reagor the following year. We're gonna actually go with Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. He's actually a very similar prospect to Reagor, but we know Brown. We know the type of threat he is in the NFL. With Reagor, the jury is kind of still out. So we're going to go with Brown here. I think the type of threat he could mean to a roster is still first round worthy. Indianapolis Colts. Did they trade out of this pick? 26. I think, yeah, they trade out of the first round because that's what the Colts do. And we're going to stick with this pick. Really, the only player they've gotten that has probably worked out, or at least looks like they're going to work out definitely. They got a lot of maybes on that roster with like Paris Campbell and Bobby Okereke. But Kerry Willis has actually been pretty solid as a box guy. And kind of freelancing as well. But I'm gonna pluck out of this safety class Juan Thornhill, man. The ACL injuries kind of screwed him a little bit, but I think it'll be fine, man. I think it'll be fine. We'll work it out. Maybe it doesn't happen here in Indianapolis. Regardless, I think he's worth the first rounder. He's been pretty darn good with the Chiefs. Now this is the next pick. Hear me out, man. I'm going all in on defense right now for the Raiders. I would have loved to get a corner, but there's not a corner I think that's worth a first rounder. Like I said, Rashad Fenton might be the next guy up. Safety. I mean, I don't really think there is a safety left worth taking in the first round. Yeah, no, there really isn't. So I'm going to go, and you might be like, well, Josh Jacobs. No, we all know. The Raiders, just pick up a guy. You got a good offensive line. Pick guys that fit your scheme. We saw Jacobs kind of struggle once that offensive line was kind of not healthy, and I imagine we're going to see him struggle a bit this season too. I think the Raiders have more pressing needs. I'm going to make sure this team can rush the passer. Like, especially if that secondary is not going to be that great. Let's at least make sure we can get to the quarterback quickly. I'm going to go with Chase Winovich. I think he was worth the first rounder at the time. I still think that's the case now. He's kind of emerged this season. He looked pretty darn good in New England. I don't know if that would be necessarily the case this year because it sounds like him and Bill Belichick don't see eye to eye. At least that's what Patriots Global kind of told me, which kind of sucks because Winovich was looking pretty darn nasty. Just look at this pass rush. Brian Burns one side, Chase Winovich the other. Disgusting. And then you got Devin Bush in there. I think that front seven's looking a lot better. So we're going to go with that there. And then we got the Los Angeles Chargers. They ended up going with Jerry Tillery. And that hasn't really worked out. I don't think he was just a good scheme fit there. We're going to go with Dexter Lawrence. He probably deserved to go a little bit earlier than this, but there's a lot of good players in this class, actually. But Lawrence has been a 3-down nose tackle with a little bit of pass rush and upside to him, mainly a run stuffer, but still, he's been quality. I think he's well worth a late first rounder. And then the Seattle Seahawks. They've been struggling struggling to find a quality tight end. That's right, I'm going tight end. I still think the tight ends in this class may be worth the first round pick. At least CJ Hawkinson. I think you can make a case he's a top 10 tight end in the league right now. After last season, he's kind of emerged. And plus, he's a good blocker. You bring him in, and you get a good blocking tight end. That's great. They love to run the ball there in Seattle, and then he's a quality threat for us. So I actually like this. Savage and Hawkinson are pretty solid picks. So no Darnell Savage here for Green Bay. Our first pick there for Green Bay was Jameel Dean. I think I'm going to stay on defense here, though. And this might be a bit surprising of a pick for others, but I kind of like this. Like, I think they've had a problem on their defensive line trying to get someone to be to help out. Like, Kenny Clark is double teamed so frequently. Let's get a guy that could probably help relieve some of that pressure off from him. And I'm going to go with Draymond Jones. Like, low key, he's turned into like a pass rushing machine there on the interior for Denver. Like, he saw 500. Like, there's a reason, like, he saw a significant amount of snaps last season, and I think we're going to see him see a significant amount of more. He's developing quite nicely, and I think he might be worth a first round pick. So jury might still be out on that, but I think it's worth it. And plus, I mean, starting next to Kenny Clark, like, watch out. That defense is going to be disgusting. And then I have Los Angeles Rams. You know what? I know people will get mad if he doesn't go in the first round here. But I think if you're the Rams, why not? You ended up drafting Darnell Henderson later and then end up just replacing him with Cam Akers. Let's get Josh Jacobs, dude. Like, honestly, what he can do, and I think the Rams will do a better job of utilizing him in the passing game than the Raiders have ever. Like, he took snaps in the slot there at Alabama. Like, utilize this guy's receiving upside. I think the Rams would do that. So he goes here to the Rams. I think it's a good fit. And then the Patriots, they've been struggling to find a quality starting tight end forever. So much so that they literally invested heavily in that twice this offseason with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. So we're going to just grab Noah Fant right here, right now. And that's it. That is my mock draft. Like, going back, my redraft, I should say. Like, going back and looking at this, dude, this is a real tough class, to decide who goes where, you know? Like, Simmons, I really struggled with the Quinnen Williams and Simmons pick, and I'd be willing to switch that. Daniel Jones, we'll kind of find out if he's a bust or not, so he might not even end up being in the first round when we do this a year from now. Ed Oliver, I think, part of me felt like that may have been too high for him. But outside of that, I'm sure some people will be mad about Devin Bush going so low, especially after Drake Greenlaw. But I think Greenlaw has been healthier, and they've shown similar ability. Marquise Brown might some people might be mad at that, but I think the guy is a really good threat with the ball in his hands. And he's a guy that could kick into the slot at times there at Baltimore. It's just Lamar Jackson, he misses deep. It's just a thing. It's just a thing Lamar does. I don't know if people will be mad at Max Crosby not making it in the first round. I think he kind of had a sophomore slump. He's a guy that was on the field so often, and his win rate's not nearly as good as some people think when they look at his pressures and sacks. It's just he's on the field so much. But I mean, the guy gets a lot of high praise. Maybe he emerges. Max Crosby was the next guy on my list in terms of the edge class, and then Cleveland Farrell was right after him. So maybe not. Maybe we'll see. I can't wait to hear what y'all have to say. But that's it for the video. Go ahead and do that YouTube thing. And as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.